Herzlich willkommen zum The UnleashPeople Podcast, dem Podcast für alle, die HR und Talent Acquisition strategisch denken. Wir, Ina und Christian, liefern euch gemeinsam mit Expertinnen und Experten regelmäßig frische Insights, die euch und euer Unternehmen voranbringen. Heute sprechen wir mit Jessie Schofer, der Gründerin von Stakkd, über HR-Tech und was Voraussetzungen für eine gute Implementierung sind. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the UnleashPeople podcast. Today we have Jessie as guest, and everybody who knows Jessie also knows the topic we will speak about today. It's HR tech and everything related to that, be it processes, AI, anything, right? So to kick it off and have a quite broad entry into that topic, Jessie, you're the HR tech expert in this round. So if you kind of can give us your view on the current state of HR and its relationship to tech, what's your take on that?
Oh, Christian, you're starting with a good question. But firstly, thanks for having me. And expert is like such a big word. I feel like, there are probably people who know more than this topic than I do. But being in the space, building out Stakkd, the HR tech database that I have got the chance to speak with a lot of the vendors, but also a lot of the community and kind of understand, let's say, what's going on to some degree in the market and what are the people really in-house, like in the businesses, doing around tech. So I'll start with like the first part. I'll kind of jump into a little bit around the market and what's going on in that space. So I think there's a lot of really cool tech coming out. I think we've seen a lot of advancement with AI. Obviously, AI is the hot thing. Our database has, I think 60% of the database has a reference to AI of some form in their tech products. So that's a lot of products, hundreds and hundreds that are, utilizing AI in their products. Some of them are AI native, some of them not. Some of them are like this traditional SaaS and they're trying to like stick it on top to compete. So that's kind of interesting that we're starting to see, all these companies that are, let's say, more traditional, SaaS products trying to, compete in that AI space. And I think what we need to work out, when we're looking for new tech is, do we need something AI native? Do we want something that is, built from the ground up? The more modern tech, the agents, do we want that and need that for certain parts of the business? And where can a traditional, SaaS product still add value? But definitely seeing growth in the AI space. That being said, especially in areas around sourcing, I think they're kind of like the low-hanging, easy, kind of low-hanging fruits that you can put into the business, I would say, rather quicker than not. There's comp tech, there's now things popping up around performance management and AI, so there's some new tools there. But also what we're seeing is the rise of the compliance question and the regulatory questions coming up from governance. And that is the space that I love. Your face changed then when I said compliance. What are you thinking, Christian?
I don't know yet. But compliance is always it's tough, right? And you always need to think about how to utilize it and what you really want to look into. And then when it comes to compliance, it's such a big field. And it's not only HR, right? That's for the complete company or like for all of the company. And I still struggle a bit. Let's phrase it like that. How to combine then compliance with AI and how to really bring it to life. Because maybe, well, Jessie and Ina, as well, I'm not the most fierce advocate of AI in all areas. I'm a bit more hesitant in its usage and also in how it should be applied to the people space. So this is a challenge. And I guess that's my answer now. It's completely senseless in a way. And probably we can fill it with life afterwards, right? Because it's just too big for now and for my brain.
I think you're actually maybe saying the sentiment of a lot of people that I speak to. So on the one side, I just mentioned a little bit about the market, a little bit about, topics and areas that are cropping up when I'm speaking to vendors. And then with the community side, a lot of it is this kind of like, I'm interested and I'm curious, but I'm, there's the regulatory and the compliance and the governance and all this kind of stuff that kind of, I guess holds people back from being more curious or implementing sooner or faster or whatever it might be. And what we're seeing is actually, there is tech out there. Haha. Could you believe it? There's AI out there that is, this kind of governance and compliance AI tech where you can actually, and I think all businesses will need this at some point very, very soon, is tech that monitors and kind of, regulates and oversees the agents within the organization, and the AI and the tech, and flags risks and, make sure that things are compliant and how they, make decisions and how they, shouldn't make decisions, but how, how their logic affects compliance, right? And there's going to be the side of the vendor. The vendor's going to have to do some things. And I think we need that stamp of like that standard needs to come out, the stamp of approval where it says, okay, this product is a certain standard. Like we have the ISO compliance, we have, the GDPR compliance. We need like a AI stamp of standard, I think, come through and to be really like an industry standard somewhere. I think we're going to see that very soon. And that's what vendors will have to do. But on the other side, once you put that into the business, it's also like you get any system, you still have to monitor your own GDPR compliance within your business. What are the processes you put in place? What are the things and steps that you take within a business to monitor and, reduce your risks and work appropriately with the compliance in mind? And that's going to be the same with AI. And I think that's where this tooling can come in, where, like I said, this governance and kind of compliance tooling will be very interesting to kind of oversee what kind of tech is in the business and the AI and what it's doing. So that's something that I'm seeing in the space too. But I think what I'm seeing more of in the space is the readiness. So you can't just like AI. I also agree with you, Christian, here. Like I'm an AI, like I love AI, but not for everything and not necessarily right this minute. So I think there's a lot of foundational things in the HR space. So like in the function itself, in the way that we've built businesses internally, that you can't just slap some AI on top and for it to work appropriately. And it's not something you just haphazardly go out and be like, well, that's cool, I'm just going to implement it. I don't know any company that I've spoken to that has an AI or a tech in general, tech roadmap for their HR team. I don't know any of them that even have a roadmap in general, let alone for their tech. Just in general, like this kind of overarching, strategic, prioritized, where are we going, where are we putting our resources, kind of list, so to say, that's even missing. So, we've got a lot of maturity to go from like 0 to 100 when it comes to AI and like implementing all these new tooling. And that's where I think we're missing, the kind of the secret sauce is in the fact that we need to kind of slow down, get our foundations right, improve the way we actually operate as a HR function, the operating models that we're using, make sure that the team is upskilled, there's more competence in that space, bring in different skill sets, and then we can start to really leverage AI and like build that on top once you've got the foundations set. But I don't see a lot of the foundations there. So I do believe it will get messy. It will get messy. Jessie? Messy? What am I saying? It will get messy AF, if you know what that stands for, before it gets better. Like it's going to get so messy. And the skill set that I think we will start to see a rise in roles is the HR transformation roles, digital transformation. So that's actually my background originally, was transformation and projects before I came into HR. And so I love that space. I have a skill set in that space and I see that it's really needed. More and more and more of those roles will be needed in business. How are you going to go from A to B? How are you transforming your team from where it is now to AI? It's going to be interesting what comes out of that, but definitely some roles in that space will be popping up, I think.
Yeah, and what you said before, it's first of all, the strategy is needed, and I hear so often strategic HR, and this is also why we have it a little bit as a topic for us. And then when you ask a little bit deeper, okay, you want to have strategic HR, what is it? What's your HR strategy? Silence. And then I think what will be worse now with AI is, and it was with normal tools before even. So, hey, there's that fancy new tool. If I implement this tool, everything will be just perfect. And this is also what a lot of vendors kind of promise.
Mhm.
Everything will be easy, but if your processes are not properly working, no tool can kind of fix it. And then I already saw in some organizations I worked for where you had a super modern, quite expensive HR tool with a lot of capabilities, a lot of functions, and then you look into it, and then even the basic data fields are not maintained correctly. So all the great analytics worth nothing. And I think that's also something AI can't heal. So, and you said something before is to figure out what kind of tool or AI I need or what I want. And I think most teams go for the, whoa, that's AI or AI on top of it. I want this, without really figuring out what do they need as an organization. And this definition of what do you really need, that's a basic step that's missing, I think.
I totally agree with that. I always find it funny because people are like, it's always about, there's quite a lot of silos I find in HR functions. You've got your TA and they're doing their stuff and they've got their tooling that they want. And then you've got, your other parts of HR, the people ops, and they're doing their stuff. But I think where the future of HR is going is actually very cross-functional, and it's not as, you're not going to have as siloed and, this person only does this job. I think that's not how it's going to end up. And with that means, it's not about what project you want to do and what you think is right for your team. It's about what does the business actually need? Like, what does the business need in this moment? And is it actually, it's not even about the people function. It's about what does, maybe the resourcing makes more sense to put it into the finance function. You're going to get a better return on investment putting it into finance projects than people projects right now because of the state of the business, because of where you need to get to. And I think, we're also inward and we're like, well, this is what I want, what I need, and et cetera, et cetera. But for HR to truly be strategic, they need to understand their kind of place within the business and in the business unit and how they contribute to the strategy, and be able to really bring forward, hey, this is the plan, this is what we need to do, are we on board with this, here's the priorities, here's why, here's what we want to achieve as a business, here's how our function can actually deliver on that, and to deliver on that we need to invest in these areas. Are we going to do it, yes or no? Is the investment making sense right now? Is everyone in agreement, at the top level of the business, and say yes or no? And if it's a yes, great, then you have, your buy-in's already there. You can go away and start doing your stuff. And if the buy-in's not there, then you can question why. But then you also go, okay, well, I can explain to the team why this project isn't going ahead or why we're not doing certain things, because the investment's going somewhere else. And you understand that trade-off as a business. And I think what happens is not that. It's not that cross-functional working at the top level. It's not the strategic thought. And then you have all the silos within the people team. So everyone's just doing whatever they want, and it doesn't really make sense. I think one of the answers is the people operating model. So I mentioned it a bit earlier, but the way in which the people team is structured, the way in which people teams prioritize, structure their teams, utilize their resources, deliver change into the business, and how they then serve the business from the customer service front needs to be completely redesigned from how we do it now. It doesn't work how we're doing it now, and that's why we have a lot of pushback. I believe in it totally, that we need to work out the process, the people, the systems, the tech, the governance. Everything needs to be looked at, and that foundation's missing. And again, we're trying to throw stuff on top of something that's broken instead of rebuilding it. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but for me it's like really obvious that it's broken. And I say HR is dead because I don't think the way we're doing it is good. I think we need to redesign it, and people get very upset when I say that, but it's not because I think people functions are not important. Actually, it's to the contrary. I think they're extremely important, the most important, but the way we do it is broken.
It's funny or sad, you can decide, because we've recorded now several episodes of this podcast. We went to some meetups and other conferences, gatherings, right? And in the end, it always boils down to one specific topic for us in HR. And you can kind of phrase it differently. Daniel Mühlbauer phrased it, follow the money. Other call it, you need to understand the business. You need to know how the company you are working for actually functions, how they make money, how they develop their products, how they produce, be it in a like manufacturing environment with a lot of blue-collar workers, be it in a software engineering company. In the end, we in HR need to fully understand the business model. And we need to be able to translate the business model into a people strategy. And here comes strategy again, right? In my opinion, you cannot develop a people strategy if you don't understand the business, because you would guide your people somewhere completely different if you kind of think, yeah, we are just one company in 1,000 and who cares what we are doing as a product, because I deal with people, I care about people every day. But that's not leading into the right direction. That's basically the most not entrepreneurial thing you can do. And in the end, it kind of will boycott your people because you're running somewhere else. So for me, well, from the recruiting perspective, for sure, you need to be very entrepreneurial. You need to understand the roles and everything you are hiring for. Otherwise, you will not be able to find the right people. And in the end, it's the same throughout the complete employee life cycle for me. You need to understand the business to be able to guide your people into the right direction. You need to understand the business if you want to create a career development framework, because how could you develop the framework if you don't know what those folks need to do as a next step? So it's, again, all boiling down to one thing. For me, it's your business acumen. You need to be as entrepreneurial as the CEO to be able to develop anything related to people.
Yeah.
And that's the first and foremost thing you need to do. If you don't understand that, we are back to square one, and tech will not help us. AI will not help us to miss that, to fill that big gap that we have or that we created in not following the business. So, yeah, that's a bit of a sad truth that we kind of found out in the past weeks and months in all the discussions we have had with so many different people. But to be very honest, right now I'm a bit at a loss how we can address that and how we can make sure that the HR function of the near future, which basically is tomorrow, can overcome that and really become that partner for the business that it needs to be able to help the companies in the most appropriate way.
I mean, it's a good. I mean, I agree. The strategy, people's strategy is missing. Like I said, in every business, they don't have a strategy, and a lot of the time it's because the competencies are lacking in that team. I mean, why would a HR function that is traditionally an employee relations function? Let's be honest, they were not, organizational enablers 20 years ago. They were just like contracts, compliance, legal, whatever, like getting you, it wasn't the same as like HR expectations today. So why would, and the education system has not caught up with like modern HR and how to like modern HR practices. So how do you learn what you need to be, to have the business acumen to, deliver on the expectations of modern HR? Like, where do you actually learn that? So I didn't come from HR background. I came from business background, transformation, like I said. So I'm bringing, years of experience, 8 or 9 years working in another part of the business, working, in the business with the business acumen that I needed, and brought it across to HR. I was quite successful in that space because I had a skill set that was not common in HR. But where else do you get that from? Like, you either need it from a leader, you need it through your education, or you need it on the job learning. But if everyone in that space and in the HR teams are not supported with training or upskilling or learning on the job or the right leadership to learn that, then we've got a bit of a problem. And I think that's where we actually have the problem. And it's not saying that people in those roles don't want to know and aren't driven very competent people. They just haven't had the chance to have those competencies and learn them yet. So I think we have a bit of a skills gap to fix there somehow. I don't know how it's going to be fixed. That's a challenge for a lot of businesses, but I also think it's part of, if you're a CEO and you're a leader and you're the head of HR, then it's like working together. It is having that conversation. It is, bringing harmony between the different functions. It's not about blame. And I think, there can be lacking of skill set, but if you're not brought to the table and you're not allowed into that space and you're not respected to be in a position of maybe I don't know, but I'm here to learn and I want to make it work, then it also doesn't work. So I think there has to be some give and some take at that leadership level. And I definitely think that the mindset of HR has to shift away from this traditional mindset. Hopefully with things like listening to these podcasts, content that I put out, there's so many people on LinkedIn, in this space, promoting new ways of thinking, ways of working for HR, that hopefully with more and more time and more available knowledge in this space, and more CEOs seeing the benefits of, moving towards these kinds of, different ways of working, different ways of delivering the HR functions, value, we will see change. It is going to take some time. That's just how it is. Change takes time. But I think the conversations like this are where it has to be. And, asking that question, pushing the buttons and asking the questions no one wants to ask, saying the things that no one wants to say. Because just sitting there saying, well, it's not fair, it doesn't work, doesn't really work, doesn't help anyone. So we'll see what happens in the future. But I think the tech that's coming, the AI that's coming, is going to force the topic a little bit faster than if we didn't have it. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
But I think at the same time, it has never been easier to learn than right now. So I think it's not really an excuse. And I'm not coming from the business. I've always done very different but functions within HR. And then now it's just so easy to use AI to learn about business. It's so easy to use AI to discuss, are my processes good, or is there anything to improve? So if you learn to really work with ChatGPT and so on, it's very easy to learn. And you can be very fast. So you don't have to rely on the business to explain you, the engineering role, right? So if I go back a couple of years and let's go into TA, the recruiter should fully understand an engineering role. What is that person doing? And if you're a beginner, you hear a lot of buzzwords, but it's I don't know what that actually is if you're not coming from engineering. And then to ask the business to explain, hey, what is it? Can you explain me more and more and better? They often didn't have the time and the patience to do so. And that's, I think, one big thing that changed now, because if you go into ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on, and you ask the right questions, you can learn it in no time. So it's I think not knowing is not an excuse anymore. It's about hey, no, start using it, leveraging it.
I mean, I totally agree there in that it's easy to learn. It is easy, it is accessible. I'm going to say it's not easy to learn. And I'm going to say that because you and I have been working a long time. We've all been working a long time in this podcast right now. People new to, the workplace or new to work, or maybe in less experience than us, I think they don't have, if you haven't had good leadership, I learned everything through good leaders. If you've had good leaders, they give you feedback. They're hey, and they wanted me to win. My leaders that I had, and I say leaders because they were not managers, they wanted me to win. They wanted me to level up. They wanted to help me. They didn't want to tell me I was doing bad and give me a bad performance review or anything like that. They were you are smashing this stuff. Here's what will make you even more employable and amazing in the future. These are your areas, how can we get you on a training course? How can we help you? They actively promoted and helped me learn about myself and where I could be excelling, and gave me the confidence that I can do better. Not that I was doing bad, but that I could do better and that I have the capability to learn, and they really hyped me up, I'm going to say, and they gave me the chances. They took chances on me. And I think that's why I have such an affinity for learning. That's why I love to learn. I wanted to know things, and they let me sit in rooms with senior people and learn how they discussed and learned how they talk about numbers. And I just feel a lot of the workforce today, they don't have the same experiences that I've had, and probably that you've had. You've probably had good leaders through your career as well. It is definitely a mindset thing. There's part on the individual, there's part on the environment, because we all know that it's not just the person. Like, there's an environmental element to, success. And I do think with HR, a lot of the times they're so poor on time, the leadership are not themselves potentially even got the skill set themselves, and that there's kind of this leadership epidemic. We've got a problem with managers and leaders not being well trained and because it happened so fast, right? Suddenly you go from, it exploded, all these startups and companies, it all just like accelerated so fast. It used to be you worked in companies for 20 years and you did this and you had, my managers were all 50. Now I've got managers who are 30. They've only worked 3 jobs in their whole life. They haven't really seen enough. They haven't experienced half of the stuff, right? There's just not saying that age is a defining factor either, right? There's an element to it, but it's just your life experience can help you and shape you. So I do think that there's an element of, it is easy to access learning. Getting the confidence and the self, to like get there isn't as easy for everyone. And I think that HR have been specifically, I'm going to say, shat on. They got the shit stick. They really got the shit stick. People like really slam them. They probably get people blaming them all the time. They're probably not feeling good. They're probably burnt out. It's like, you're not thinking about, how am I going to learn? Of course, they need to be thinking about that, but it can be very hard. So I think there's an element of self-starter. There's an element of leadership need to step in and business need to make sure competencies and, there's the space for learning and an environment for learning. And then, people, of course, listening to this, if you're listening and you aren't self-learning, like, get in there, get into ChatGPT, start learning, start doing, ask questions, reach out. But it's not like, we know it's easy to learn and we know there's access to learning, but it's still a problem. So there's got to be something else in there that is stopping people from doing it. I don't know what it is, but that's my 2 cents on it.
It's funny again that you mentioned it, because yesterday I read the latest report from Culture Amp on high performing teams, and basically one of the biggest findings in there was that high performing teams are heavily reliant on good managers and on good leaders.
Drop the mic. I told you. I didn't even read the report.
But most times you think that's the case, but then having proof on that, like really data-driven proof that a good leader fosters a high-performing team, is very, very helpful, because it also helps us focus more on developing leaders and also developing people into non-leadership roles if they don't want to be a leader, so that you don't have that glass ceiling in your career, where you need to decide if you want to level up, you need to become a leader or not. That somehow needs to be kind of removed so that you can develop without becoming a leader, and that only those people who really want to be a leader and you can train into a good leadership style, that those folks also take over teams. Because the second finding in that leadership piece was that a good leader can provide a lot of psychological safety. And that is also a very decisive factor in everybody kind of achieving their best. So leadership is not, and that's again now, I guess, a bit more philosophical, because I call those folks leaders, not managers. Managers just give orders and follow kind of the plan. And leaders care about people and help people grow, and also admit own failures and everything in that direction, right? So that you need to focus on true leadership in your company and not on managing people. So that's one important aspect. And to kind of sum it up, what I found even more interesting is that everybody in the organization can become a high performer. Even folks who were at the lowest end of the performance rating in one cycle manage to become a high performer in the next cycle, given the right leadership and the right environment where those folks can develop and then also grow. So Yeah, leadership is one of the most important things, right?
So that means our focus as a HR team should be on 1, leadership, and 2, building an environment where people can succeed, which is about psychological safety, creating like transparency, creating clarity, making sure your systems and processes don't make things harder and confusing, but actually clearer and easier to digest. And, there's like some very basic principles around like systems thinking that can help, but also around, making sure that leaders are trained properly. And I mean, when I think about leadership, I think about like a child a little bit, like I think about my son, and I want him to be the best he can be. And I don't want him to be scolded and like, you did something wrong. I want it to be like, here's some boundaries or whatever it might be, or here's where the aim is. And, giving him the guidance to get there and hyping him up and, making sure he learns and sharing what I know and making it safe, not that he's scared to make a mistake. And I think at work, people have, like when I have poor work, when I have not psychological safety at work, it's because I feel that someone judges me negatively for something that I may have done not perfectly. So I don't feel safe to make a mistake. So failure is not an option. I don't feel safe to make a mistake, and I don't feel I can be honest without having a negative repercussion on myself. So if I'm honest and I'm transparent and I'm true to myself, that there will be negative consequence coming back to me. So if we can avoid those things and just actually be humans, that goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think that's also something missing in many, many companies. So when I look back into, like just looking into the companies I worked for, I was in touch with, especially in the startup world, in a lot of those companies, there is no leadership training or very little, or they just use a budget so everyone can do whatever trainings they want to. So they don't have like a leadership philosophy in the company. And that's something you should invest in first, right? To also think about what is our leadership style. Obviously, everyone is an individual and leads a little bit differently, but you need an assessment. Is the person a good leader from what we as a company expect from our leaders? And then what could be a potential training program so that you create a baseline. This is how we lead. And that's actually something very simple, nothing new and fancy. It's there since ever. But many companies are not investing in that, which is sad, actually.
Yeah, I agree. It's sad, and we need to do it. So everyone out there, if you're in HR and you have any control over this, you know where to start.
And it looks like that we kind of moved far away from our initial topic, HR tech, on first glance, but actually we did not, because in my opinion, a good HR tech solution should enable us as an HR team to focus on exactly that. So that we have the basic processes in place and we can automate as much as can be automated within certain boundaries. When we utilize AI also within the EU AI Act, that kind of regulates a lot and also gives the boundaries in which areas we can use specific types of AI. And if we really use the technology we have to its fullest extent, then we can focus on the people and on the strategy and on the development of our people and leaders and everybody, right, who works for our companies, to really lift everybody to the next level and to make the company we are working for even more successful, because that should be the goal of an HR organization, right? Make the company as successful as possible using the most important asset. And I don't like that word, but using the most important asset we have, and that is the people, not the technology. And if we can do that, and if we can bring that to life, we really took a huge leap forward, at least in my opinion. Good. So we are running to the end of this very interesting episode. So maybe, Jessie, what would be your last piece of advice to the audience? So what would you recommend to everybody who is listening to us? How should they use technology and everything that is related to human resources?
Okay, I'm going to not answer how they should use technology, but how they can start with, like, where to start. Because I think that's what everyone asks me the most, is where to start. Where to start is exactly what we talked about. You need a strategy. If you do not have a strategy in HR, you need to get one. That's number one. Number two, once you have your strategy, you need to develop a roadmap in consultation with the business leadership, get buy-in. That roadmap needs to include tech. And then you need to look at your people operating model. How is the team set up? How are the team structured? How do the processes work? Where are you going to implement tech? How are you going to keep humans in the loop when you implement, tech and processes? Think about these things. You are designing a team, which is like an engine to support and design an engine for the business to run and to be successful and to be the best it can be. So that's where you've got to start. Strategy, roadmap, tech roadmap included, and an operating model. With that, you can then go out and choose the right tech and utilize the tech in the right way and actually get return on investment, and you'll get buy-in. You will get buy-in. If you do these three things, I 1000% can say you will get buy-in to get tech. That's where you should start.
Great. Ina, anything to add?
No, that was just complete perfect.
Yeah.
So, on the point.
let's use that as the end statement of this episode. Thank you very much, Jessie, for joining us and also for sharing your experience. And it's also very interesting to see HR experts who started somewhere completely different, because that also adds a completely new perspective to what we have been doing for ages, so to say. Yeah, thank you very much and have a good rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Das war's für heute. Vielen Dank, dass ihr bis zum Ende dabei geblieben seid und bis zum nächsten Mal.